Welcome back to the All Ball Podcast, where it's all ball all the time. You are here with your hosts, Isaiah and Sean. This is episode number 3. Isaiah, how you feeling today, man? What are your thoughts about what's going on around the league today?
Well, as we all know, Summer League has wrapped up this past week, and it's a lot of ups and downs from this closing week. I want to start on the low note so we can end it on a higher note. Man, Jalen Green going out really showed Josh Christopher's detriments. With Jalen Green out, Josh Christopher was forced to take on more of an offensive load than he needed to before. And him taking on that load revealed that he really has a 3-point chucking problem. Lots of unnecessarily forced shots going up when he could have made a better pass or penetrated to the rim for a better penetrated to the rim for a better shot. But yeah, that's really my only take on him. How do you feel about it?
Um, I was very happy with Jalen Green. I got really scared though when he got injured.
Mm-hmm.
I I got really nervous. My hope
Yeah.
for the whole season was like, oh no, is this gonna be another like tanking season? I was like, I really don't want to go through that again. As for Josh Christopher, I 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think he went 6 for like 30 and 3-pointers the whole summer league, which is really bad. Like
Yeah,
really, really bad.
that's
Like if
that's an
you're,
understatement. That's
yeah,
very bad.
I don't know how else to put it other than really bad. If you're going to be taking that many threes, you have to hit it with efficiency. I will say though, not to just trash on him too much. His mid range looked incredible. When he
Oh
got to his
yes,
spot in the mid range, he was a bucket. I
yeah.
mean,
Especially when he had the little fade on it, so he could get some more space to get the shot off. Yeah, those look smooth every time. I feel like him and Green both worked on those together because they both seem to hit those very well.
yeah, they both look really good in the mid range. Christopher also looked good in transition, but that we already knew that coming out of the draft that he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really going to transition. I just think that he's going to start in the G League. I said that in the first episode, but
Hmm.
after seeing him do so poorly from the 3-point line, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to start in the G League. But I still
Yeah.
think he could come into the roster later in the year and be a serviceable bench player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The way that I see it, originally I didn't agree with you on that just because I wasn't sure how well he was going to perform in the summer league. So I really only had that first performance in mind.
Yeah,
But yeah, after seeing how he's played throughout the rest of the summer league, he could really benefit from spending some time in the G League this season, polishing up his skills some more, and then also working with some of the G League vets to get the IQ up, work on maybe some off the court stuff if he needs some help with that too. And then, yeah, like you said, he could come in towards later in the season to contribute to the main roster.
yeah. So also with Garuba, I think Garuba might start in the G League too. I know that he only got about, was it 1 game or 2 games he got to play?
I believe it was two.
So I know that he's supposed to be like this monster on defense, but I think he needs to go into the G League just to work on his offense. I think he's reliable enough on his defense to be in the NBA, but his offensive game just was not there yet. We knew that coming out of the draft also, but
Mhm.
when your offensive game is so low, you kind of need to bring it up at least to where you could be contributing in some way to be in the NBA. At least that's
Mhm.
my take on it.
Yeah, I agree as well. I believe that he should, like, whether he does or not, I believe that he should spend time in the G League along with Josh Christopher. Because Josh Christopher, he needs to work on his IQ side of the game, whereas Gruba, like you said, he needs to work on his offense desperately. His offensive game was pretty lackluster from what I saw, didn't have much to it, so he absolutely needs to spend some time in the G League to develop his offense some more. Maybe develop into a PJ Tucker at the very least, so he can stand in the corner and hit threes when they're needed.
Yeah, I think PJ Tucker's a really good comparison. His defensive game is very much there. Like PJ, he's bigger than PJ too, so he can guard centers and power forwards a lot better.
Hmm.
Like you said though, his offensive game just needs to be polished, and it's not even like it's there's much there. It needs to build an offensive game somehow. One guy that I think though that might make the roster, may not see too much playing time, is Armani Brooks. Brooks had
Hmm.
an amazing game. He went off for 30 points. Took a lot of shots, but he was efficient.
Yeah, I like Brooks too, because even last season and how he played in college too. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I have a bias for Armani Brooks, but I think that he could see some time. If I remember correctly, he did spend some time with the main roster this past season. So between him already having some experience with the main roster and his obviously amazing summer league performance, yeah, he could definitely at least start the season with the main roster.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. He did play with us a little bit last year during the main season or
Hmm.
during the regular season. Uh, like I said, I just don't know how much playing time he gets because we have a lot of young guys. Um, we have Green, we have John Wall, we have Eric Gordon. Not saying those are young guys, but
Yeah,
we have a lot of
we have a
guard
lot of
depth.
guards. Yeah.
Yep. As for Shingun, do you think he's gonna start or come off the bench?
Ooh, you see, I think they should start him off the bench, just off the rip, even though he's a very good player so far. Well, I don't want to say very good player. He's a very impressive player. I like where he is for his age, but I don't necessarily think that he's just 100% NBA ready. Just go ahead and throw him in the starting lineup. And then on top of, I just don't feel like he's ready. I also feel like he's gonna be best at the five when he's on the court.
Hmm.
And we have Christian Wood, who, when healthy, is absolutely a starting caliber player. He's an all star caliber player. So he's gonna have to start at that five spot.
Yeah, I think so too. I really wanted him to start, but since we brought in Daniel Tice, I think Tice might even start at the five and Christian Wood at the four. That's probably not how I want it to happen, but I guess we'll see how it goes. So with Tice coming out, I don't think Shingun gets the start.
Oh yeah, yeah. I completely forgot about the Tice signing. So yeah, especially with Tice as well, who's already a seasoned, proven player through his time at the Celtics. Yeah, he's Shingun. I really like him. I'm really impressed with his summer league performances, but he's just not a starting NBA center yet.
Right. So is there any other players in the summer league that improved you aside from the players on the Rockets?
Um, Sharif Cooper. I really liked how he managed to bring it together after his sort of down first summer league performance, and really had an impressive run after that, as well as Jalen Johnson, his teammate in the summer league. Somebody who I've already given praise to before, Davion Mitchell, defensively looked like the best player, the best defensive player from this draft. Maybe Garuba gives him a run for his money, but just haven't seen enough of Garuba play yet, whereas Mitchell played the entire summer league.
Yeah, Mitchell looked great. He won't. Him and Cam Thomas got the co MVP of the summer league. I said that Mitchell. I thought Mitchell was a good candidate to win the MVP for the summer league. I wasn't expecting Cam Thomas to perform as good as he did, but I think the Brooklyn Nets got a steal. He'll be a
Hmm.
great bench piece to come off and give him buckets. He's an amazing scorer. But for Mitchell, he's so good on defense. I think that I Do you think he's like? I know we talked about this in the other another episode, but
Mhm.
do you think he fits better as a one guard or two guard? I know that the positions kind of don't matter anymore, but just if the positions, if where they stick him, just where do you think they're gonna put him?
In all honesty, I'd say he fits better as a two guard because I really didn't see much playmaking from him. And while,
Hmm.
like you said, positions aren't what they used to be anymore, at the end of the day, you want somebody who's going to be a facilitator, to be your main ball handler. And I just don't see that from Mitchell. So I'd
Yeah,
say leave Fox at the one, maybe even Halliburton at the one if they want to do it like that when they have two guards on the court. And then Mitchell should just always be more of an off ball guard.
yeah. I think Fox is proven to be the one, but I know that I think he can slide over to the two if he has to. I think his defense is good enough to hold his own. But Halliburton, like I said, like we talked about in the other episode,
Yeah.
I I think he has the ability to slide over the three if he adds weight, but that's kind of up to what
Yeah,
they do. And
it's up to if they decide that he needs to add. Because really, if he's going to slide to the three, he's going to need to add significant weight. When you look at some of the other prominent threes in the league, most notably LeBron James, yeah, it's just Kawhi Leonard, even though he's not healthy right now, but
mhm.
still Kawhi. We have Paul George when he slides down with Kawhi out sometimes. So there's some rather tall and strong wings out there. So he's going to need to bulk up a lot if he wants to play that three well against certain teams.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next topic, is there anyone who disappointed you in the summer league?
Nobody that I haven't already said before. Like I mentioned last week, I was a little disappointed with James Booknight. I was disappointed with the way Barnes performed. But other than them, no real major disappointments. Because I didn't expect much from most people in Summer League anyway. So you had to be a certain caliber of player to disappoint me in the first place.
Reading a book to you at night. um. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk about trades we liked and didn't like, or free agent signings we liked and didn't like. Who are your likes and dislikes?
First, gonna start off with the signing that or trade that I liked the most, and that's Lonzo to the Bulls.
Hmm.
As we saw when he played with Zion, he worked to develop that 3 point shot more so that he could be a useful off the ball, catch and shoot guy. Also, it's Lonzo Ball. We all know what he can do when it comes to passing the ball and getting teammates involved. And once again, playing with Zion, we saw how well he can hit a cutting super freak athlete, which Zach Levine also happens to be. So that should be fun to see in terms of the kind of lobs and transition play we'll see between the two of them. And then also just with DeMar DeRozan being there as well, he's no slouch athletically either.
Right.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't necessarily like about that matchup maybe is that Lonzo still isn't much of a threat when he has the ball and is dribbling it. But
So
when you have guys like Zach Levine, DeMar DeRozan, do you really need that?
so who do you think is going to be the primary ball handler? Because Demar became a pretty good playmaker in San Antonio because he kind of had to, being that
Hmm.
he was the number one option. Vucevic is going to need his touches down in the post, and Zach Levine is probably going to be your number one option as a scorer. But who do you have, being that Lonzo comes in, DeRozan comes in? Who's going to be the main? Who do you think is going to be the main, like, primary ball handler?
Well, I don't necessarily like Levine as a primary ball handler, so that takes him out, despite the fact that I do think he should be the number one scoring option.
Hmm.
Vucevic, really, with Vucevic, you want him out there on the 3 point line taking some shots since he is a pretty good shooter. And then on the block, you don't want him doing that too much, especially with the fact that DeRozan has developed his post game as well. So you don't want both of them down there. So I don't think Vucevic is going to be the primary handler, I guess you would say, for him either. So it really comes down to DeRozan and Lonzo. And between those two, because I don't see Lonzo as much of a threat with the ball in his hands, with except for passing threat, then I just can't see him being the ball handler over DeMar.
So then, does that kind of make Lonzo into a 3 and D player now for you? Like, is that what you kind of see him as?
That's actually exactly what I see him as until he can develop some off the dribble game. I think that the way he fits with DeMar is a better shooting, but worse, not handling, I should say, but a worse finishing, but better shooting, DeJounte Murray.
I can see that too. I just think it's bit a little bit too much money to pay for just a 3 and D point guard. I know that he can develop more into a playmaker. He's still pretty young, but just at the moment, maybe it's just a little bit too much money for a 3 and D point guard.
I mean, he is an exceptional playmaker already. It's just he's not much of a straight up scorer. And in that sense, it's if scoring is really the only thing that he's not that great at,
Hmm.
then it's kind of a situation where you question the value of guys like Draymond Green, where
And
okay, like they provide a lot of other intangible things to the game that to help out their teammates that aren't scoring. So do you really want to knock down the guy's value because oh he's not an elite scorer? I personally don't think you should.
yeah, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. But I don't know. I still, in a way, kind of think it's a little bit too much money. But I guess we'll see how it plays out
Oh
during
yeah,
the regular season.
I absolutely do think it was too much money.
So, what was which trade or free agent signing did you not like?
I'm not gonna say that I didn't like this one just because I don't like the fit or anything like that. Even though, don't get me wrong, I don't like this fit. The reason I don't like this is just because of how poorly it turned out for him,
Hmm.
and that's Dennis Schroeder to the Celtics.
Okay.
Yes, he
Oh man.
turned down an exceptional contract offer from the Lakers to, quote, bet on himself in free agency. It came back to bite him in the butt terribly. Now he's playing for less than 10 mil on the Celtics on a team where I don't think he necessarily fits that well. Because if you look at their current two best players, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, both of
Hmm.
those guys are guys who, one, want to have the ball in their hand, and number two, are best when they can get to their spot and do what they want to do. Dennis Schroeder is not the kind of guy who's going to help with that, even if they don't have the ball in their hands. He's not necessarily just an inept playmaker, but he's not the kind of guy that, at least as far as I've seen, is going to really work to get guys involved and make sure everyone's getting their touches. He very much seems like a player who wants to get his too much to be that kind of pass first player, which is what I think the Celtics really need.
Yeah, he really like shot himself in the foot trying to bet on himself. But you know what? If you feel like you're that good of a player, if you know you could have a great year and earn your money, go for it. But I just think with the chance to play with on a more prime championship team in the Lakers rather than the Celtics, and to be making that much money, I think he kind of missed on an opportunity to be in a better situation.
Oh, absolutely a better situation. And then even on top of that, while yes, I don't think that betting on yourself just in concept is bad or wrong in any way. It's after you just came out of a first round exit where you were one of the worst performing players on that team. That
Hmm.
shouldn't be the time where you want to try and bet on yourself. You had 0 points in a very important playoff game. That is not the time to bet on yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like having the all the cards stacked against you. You're like, nah, let me just put all my money in, see what happens.
Putting all the chips on the table.
Hmm. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about my the trades and or free agent signings that I liked.
Hmm.
So the trade that I did like was the Valanciunas trade. I think it gives the Pelicans a better option at center. Uh,
Okay.
Valanciunas is a lot, I think, honestly, a lot better than Steven Adams
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I've heard some people say that it's not too much of a difference, but Valanciunas can hit threes. I think Valanciunas is just more dominant in the paint. No offense to Steven Adams, but
Hmm.
he's not as much as a difference maker than when you hear Steven Adams. I don't think you're like, oh, okay, like yeah, he's a good serviceable center.
Hmm.
But when you hear Valanciunas, I think, okay, well, he could be a threat this game. He could go off this game.
Oh, absolutely. You see, and anybody who really thinks that they're sort of comparable in any sense, I I absolutely cannot value that person's basketball opinion. We have Valanciunas, who was a 17 point per game scorer, I believe, last season, as well as a major double double threat every game. Like you said, he can shoot somewhat well. That like there's really no comparison there. They're both pretty solid defensive guys, but
Mhm.
Steven Adams' offensive game really is just nowhere near Valanciunas's, and it's not even close. I love Steven Adams as a person. He's hilarious, humble guy, but as a player, I can fully admit that his offensive game is rather weak.
Yeah, I think the Grizzlies kind of sold. I think they could have got a lot more back for Valanciunas if they really wanted
Absolutely.
to. But I guess we'll see how it plays out. As a Rockets fan, I don't like the Pelicans getting Valanciunas because that's gonna hurt us when we play them 4 times a year. But for as a Pelicans point of view, it's good for them.
Mhm.
Maybe they can make a better playoff push this year. But for the trade that I don't like, also, I'm gonna stick with the Pelicans or I guess trader signing Devonte Graham. I
Ah, okay.
I don't like it. I wish they would have did as a for the Pelicans. I wish they would have did everything in their power to keep Lonzo. I think building Lonzo, Bi, and Zion together would have been a lot better than letting Lonzo walk and bringing in a guy like Graham.
Hmm. You see, I can agree with you on that one. Now, I'm in a kind of a weird position because I did say that the Lonzo to the Bulls signing slash trade was my favorite.
Hmm.
But at the same time, if I were to view it from the Pelicans' perspective, yeah, that was a terrible situation for them. Lonzo had already proven that he was a good enough fit with Zion and Ingram, which is important because you like his play style fits with them so well because they're both very good scorers. Really, they're both great scorers. And Lonzo is somebody who doesn't necessarily need the ball to be at his most effective. He can be off the ball, get a catch. He can catch and shoot it. If he doesn't necessarily like the catch, he has the IQ to hit whoever he needs to hit next. Whereas Graham, while he did have a great run, not this past season, but the season before, as a playmaker when he really first started to break out, he's also shown that he needs to have the ball to really be at his best because he likes to score the ball too. And then at the same time, he somewhat has the same weakness that Lonzo has when it comes to finishing at the rim. But the difference between the two is that Lonzo just doesn't get to the rim that much to begin with, whereas Graham gets to the rim and just has a terrible conversion rate because of his size. So between you've given up size, you've given up defensive capability, you've given up off ball, not necessarily ability because Graham can play off the ball, but you've given up somebody who's better off the ball for somebody who's obviously not as good off the ball. So because of that, I really don't like this fit with Graham on the Pelicans either. Hopefully he can prove me wrong because I have some people close to me who are big fans of Devontae Graham, so I don't want to hear about it when he's
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. I think it's a bad fit because when you look at the Pelicans, they're not a rebuilding team. They have the pieces to compete for a deep playoff run, at least in my opinion. I think Zion and BR are good enough to hold it down. If you add Lonzo, I think they can probably make it to the second round and probably even give a good team a run for their money. But when you add Devontae Graham, I think you're taking away fit. And once you get to a certain point from rebuilding as to where you're getting like the best players possible, and then once you're going to that for that championship run, you try to get more fit,
Hmm.
I think you just took the fit out. Like you're trying to put a circle in a triangle peg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just my take on it. But who knows? He may blossom with the Pelicans.
Oh yeah, definitely won't hold it against him to possibly blossom with the Pelicans. I could see it happening. It's just that I I think the biggest problem that the Pelicans really had was the role players around their big three that they had. But instead, they improved one of the role players and then just kind of did whatever and let Lonzo walk too. So I don't know what they're gonna do, but hey, hopefully they're bad so our Rockets have an easier time.
Yeah, hopefully. Just one more thing before we move on to the hot takes. What do you think their starting lineup is going to be? I think it's going to be Graham, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Bi, Zion, Valanciunas. I think the only like position that's up for grabs is the two guard. So I think it's going to be Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Oh yeah, what like you said, the only position that's really up for grabs is the two guard. Absolutely, Graham needs to start as their one. That's really no debate there. Ingram needs to start at their three. No debate there. Zion is Zion, generational talent. You're not putting him on the bench. And then Valanciunas, like we were talking about when we first brought up this signing, he's a very good player. He needs to start. So again, no debate there. The only spot up for question at that point is the two guard. And with that, I would say I could see Alexander Walker taking that spot. He definitely seemed to have improved this past season, but really, there's not much contention at that spot either. It's just him or Josh Hart, I believe.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I was going to say, Josh Hart.
yeah, while this is the only spot that's up for grabs, I don't think it's that much up for grabs because your only two options are Alexander Walker, a young guy who definitely has nowhere near reached his full potential, and then Josh Hart, who's kind of already developed his role and seems to be fine in it.
Hmm.
So unless they just feel like they need some more defense in the starting lineup, I say they go with Alexander Walker too.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on with our hot takes. So, give it to me. What's your hot take?
My hot take for this week: Donovan Mitchell is overrated, and
What?
Rudy Gobert is overhated.
Oh man, I don't know about that one.
Okay,
I
let
think
me
I'm gonna have to.
explain. Let me
Okay, okay. Let me.
explain
Okay,
first. Okay, I'll start with the Rudy Gobert situation, and then I'll move to the more controversial Donovan Mitchell situation.
okay.
As for Rudy Gobert, the problem that a lot of people seem to have with him, this is the main issue that I always see people bring up when they talk about Rudy Gobert's game. The fact that he, quote, gets exposed in the playoffs. He's not really getting exposed in the playoffs. What's happening is that his guards are not doing a good enough job defensively. So he's having to make up for their faults and their mistakes by protecting the rim, like he's done all season. But then on top of that, he also has to deal with guarding somebody on the perimeter as well sometimes. And you can't ask somebody to be in two places at once. So when it comes down to give up an open three or give up an open layup, 10 times out of 10, you should give up that open three and not that open layup. A 3-point shot will always be harder than a layup.
Okay. Okay. So, would make your case about Donovan Mitchell.
Now, as for Donovan Mitchell, let me be very clear here. I don't dislike Donovan Mitchell. I don't dislike his game. I don't think that he's bad. Nothing of that sort at all. What I'm saying when I say he's overrated is that I believe fans put him on too high of a pedestal for what he really is. At the end of the day, Donovan Mitchell is a very good scorer and an okay playmaker. Other than that, he really does not do much else on the court. And people are still like out here trying to put him above Trae Young. They're out here saying that he's in the same caliber as Devin Booker. And I don't see it. I really don't see it. Especially when you consider that he's not a very efficient scorer at that. So while he can have some impressive games where he goes off and he has like an impressive scoring total and points per game number, when you look at how many shots per game it's taking him to get to that number, it kind of drags down the value of those points, in my opinion.
Okay, so let me ask you this because this is gonna really decide whether I disagree with you or agree with you or not.
Okay.
Who do you think is the best player on the Jazz?
Oh man, it's gonna be Rudy for me.
Oh no,
It's,
no, 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 no. Oh, oh, Isaiah.
listen,
No
listen,
way.
listen. All that Donovan Mitchell is really the what Donovan Mitchell is bringing to that team is scoring the ball. I will not deny that he's number one option. He's the best scorer on the team without a doubt. But in terms of the best player, in terms of the most value that they bring to that team, it is Rudy Gobert. The Jazz have hung their hats on defense for the past 4, 5, however many seasons because of Rudy Gobert's defensive impact and multiple defensive player of the year seasons.
Man. So I don't know. So you think that like if they didn't have Gobert, do you still think they'd be a top, let's say 4 or 5 seed?
Absolutely not. Depending on who they replace him with. If they were to replace him with obviously somebody else who's a defensive player of the year center player, while Giannis isn't a center, obviously, if you were to
Hmm.
have him at the center, I think, okay, obviously they're still a top tier team. If you were to get maybe Joel Embiid in there, I obviously with excusing his health problems, they would still be a top tier team, obviously. Even Bam Adebayo, potentially. they would still be a very top tier team. But if you just took him off and replaced him with an average center, I could see them dropping down to like eighth seed or below. Whereas Donovan Mitchell, his buckets are very important and he's had a lot of clutch performances for them. It's a matter of who you replace him with as well. And I just think there are more people that you could replace Mitchell with that would have the same level of success for them. Whereas Gobert, there's less people that you could shove in his position and still get the same quality of play.
Man, I don't know. So like, you don't think if you were to shove like an average player, like a good defensive player who doesn't really have much of an offense game, like um, man, I don't know. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Maybe like a Jakopoto or Zubac. Like you don't think
I
they're
don't
still
even
up there?
I don't count Zubac as a good defensive player anyway. We saw what DeAndre Ayton put on his head to win the game.
Okay, well let's say Jakopoto. You don't think if Jakopoto slides into the five there, you don't think they're still a top five seed?
No, absolutely not. Especially with the way that Gobert has one developed as a rebounder and two slightly developed his offensive game. Again, slightly developed his
Mhm.
offensive game. So he's definitely not useless on that end of the court. Whereas I don't think it's like anywhere close to him as a rebounder or in where his offensive game is.
Okay. All right. Well, I have to think about that one overnight. See how I feel about it in the morning. But as of right now, I still disagree with you. But I'll go ahead and give my hot take now.
Okay.
As for mine, though, it shouldn't be a hot take because I think this should have happened last season.
Okay.
But I'm gonna say it's a hot take because based on how things have been going, they still haven't done what I think they're supposed to do.
Okay.
If the Indiana Pacers are a below 500 team by the trade deadline,
Hmm.
I think they need to blow it up. I think they need to trade away Sabonis, Warren, and Brogdon, and well, Turner too. I think those four guys need to go, and they need to start a rebuilding process. Even though they just got Chris Duarte, who they're expecting to come in since he's an older guy, be NBA ready.
Hmm.
I think they're if they are below 500, I think they need to blow it up.
Okay. Yeah. I don't see that as a hot take. Personally, I 100% agree. I think that if they can't make a respectable playoff push and will have a respectable playoff run with this squad here this season, this they need to call it wraps. Absolutely. Sabonis, while he's a very good player, definitely all-star caliber player, potentially all NBA caliber player, he's obviously not a best player on a championship team kind of guy.
Hmm.
I don't see Brogdon or TJ Warren as a second best player on a championship contending team either. So if they can at least be honestly, I don't really like the idea of teams just being respectable playoff teams either. I feel like you need to be a championship contender or you should be striving to be a championship contender or you just have to blow it up because that middle of the pack region doesn't do much for you because you're getting consistent failure by the end of the season, but you were just slightly too successful to where your draft picks are also very useless. So you're just kind of stuck in this purgatory area for a long time and you have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I think Brogdon's reached his prime. Warren's reached his prime. Miles Turner, I think, can still grow a little bit more.
Hmm.
I think they could get a pretty good return for him. Well, for Warren, maybe if you get Bubble Warren, I don't know. You could probably get a lot if you get TJ Warren from the bubble, but
Oh yeah, Boba Warren, that man is Michael Jordan. You could get you could trade anybody for Bubba Warren.
and as for Sabonis, like you said, I don't think should be the best player on a championship team. I think he could be a great second option, maybe a
Hmm.
third, but with the squad that they have now, I think they're all good pieces, but I just don't think they have enough to push. I don't think they have that one guy. They need one guy, one star
Hmm.
that's better than Sabonis to really push them over that hump to make a deep championship run. But I
Exactly.
just don't see them having that. And Karis LeVert's there too now, so I don't know what you can do with him because can't stay healthy, and then his contract situation.
Yeah, and then even when he is healthy, I have an inside joke with a cousin of mine about Karis LeVert being the most inconsistent guy in the league because you never know if he's going to come out and give you 40 or if he's going to come out and give you 11.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy the Rockets did not trade for him.
Oh yeah. Oh man. When I heard that he went to the Pacers and not here, I was oh man. I was so happy because I would not have been able to handle Karis LeVert being our potentially best player.
That would not. I think we'd be in a lot, have a lot of sadness over the next couple of years as a Rockets franchise.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, even like was it 2 years ago when we still had Harden and Russ, I wanted the Rockets to trade for Miles Turner. I
Okay,
thought
I
he would
can
have
see that.
fitted pretty well with us.
You see, if we're going to talk about trades that I think should have happened before, really, this could go on the hot take segment, but I'm going to just spit it out right now.
All right.
When we traded for CP3,
Mm-hmm.
I saw that as the opportunity to move James Harden because I didn't like the idea of them two playing together. And I also just didn't like James Harden as our star. Like I had too much disappointment from him. Playoff choking and disappearing, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So what I wanted when we got CP3 was to move Harden for AD.
Dang, I've never thought about moving Harden. Like up until this year, just because of what was going on. Like I've never thought about moving him anywhere. Like for nothing.
Oh, see, no. I really was not too much of a fan of Harden. When he was good, I liked him because he was playing good. But in general, I couldn't do it. Even during the regular season, there were so many games where James Harden looked really bad. Matter of fact, I believe it was one of the games that we went to where he was just terrible shooting from three.
How many years ago was that? Do you remember?
Oh no, it was 2 years ago. It was a game when Westbrook was on the Rockets.
I do remember that game.
Yeah,
That game was versus the Suns, I
yeah, it
think.
was versus the Suns.
And Westbrook, that was when Westbrook was doing really good and he
Yeah,
carried.
and he absolutely carried us to that win because James Harden was non-existent.
I do remember us going to that game. Yeah, we won.
Yep,
And only because Westbrook, though, because yeah, I do remember James Harden playing very poorly.
exactly. So because of his lower and more down performances, I wanted to move Harden so many times. I constantly on various 2K games theorized different trades that we could do for him. Like I said, most notably the AD trade for him. Because
Mhm.
I think with CP3 and AD, while obviously that would have been a questionable team health wise. I think with the both of them healthy, they could have been a better duo than Harden and CP3 were.
Yeah, I guess it all just depends on the health standpoint, like you said. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Just moving James Harden back then, like back in the day, if you told me let's trade James Harden, I'd be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I never actually expected it to happen, but I wanted it to happen.
Hmm. All right, well, that's gonna be the end of the podcast. If you liked the podcast, go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you want us to talk about anything. Drop your hot takes or just anything in general. Isaiah, you got any last comments?
Don't forget to leave any sort of feedback in the comments below. Please leave comments. They help us make the podcast better, and they also help boost us in the algorithm so more people can enjoy this podcast. And just share it with your friends. That's all we have.
Yep. All right. Well, catch y'all next week on the next episode.